I call Kennedy Graham, 5-minute speech on behalf of the Green Party.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The Green Party tends to agree in general terms with what the previous speaker, Jamie Lee Ross, has just said. There is, on balance, a net reason to join the Asian Investment Bank, Infrastructure Investment Bank. And the reasons that have been identified both by our Labor colleagues and National are essentially twofold. One is it's in our interest to get engaged with Asia's future. And secondly, if that's the case, then it makes sense for New Zealand to get involved early on and have some influence in the creation and the early development of the bank. So those are the reasons the Green Party agrees with and was prepared to support this bill accordingly. That said, there are caveats that we need to have regard to. Jamie Lee Ross and I think others identified the primary objective of the bank as increasing growth in Asia, and that is in New Zealand's interests. Yes and no. It depends on what we mean by growth in Asia. Because we tend, and it's there in the articles of agreement of the bank, we tend to throw these words around with fair gay abandon without a really deep understanding of what these words mean. The essential purpose of the bank under Article 1 is to foster sustainable economic development, create wealth, and improve infrastructure connectivity in Asia. 3 subsidiary purposes in the one. We can tick each of those, but the critical phrase, Mr. Speaker, is sustainable economic development. If that economic development is not sustainable, it is not in Asia's interest, it is not in New Zealand's interest, it's not in the world's interests. And yet, we throw in that adjective, sustainable, as if it is the veil for anything we wish to do. And the enthusiasm with which some of our colleagues here in this House today have struck up on Asian growth and Asian economic development gives us pause here in the Green Party. We support it, but only on the very strict understanding that that growth is sustainable economic development. And the faith in the ability of the bank, or even New Zealand to encourage the bank to achieve that goal, is not increased when you look at the preamble and the way it was drafted. The first preambular paragraph talks about to sustain growth. It doesn't say sustainable economic development, it says sustain growth. Sustained growth is not necessarily, and may well not be, sustainable economic development. And yet we identify it in the first preambular. We think in the first preambular that sustained growth will help us contribute to, quote, regional resilience against potential financial crises and other external shocks in the context of globalization. Sir, the biggest external shock for Asia, New Zealand, and the world is going to be the hit back from the ecological deficit and the global crisis, ecological crisis, if we don't engage in sustainable growth. We are prepared, New Zealand, to contribute $92.3 million to this. 92.3 million. What are we prepared to do to the UN Green Climate Fund? 2.6. 92 versus 2.6. How much are we contributing to the Green Climate Fund per capita? 60 cents. How much is Luxembourg? $6.70. Norway, this is per capita, $50.60. Denmark, $12.80. Australia, $7.90 per capita. New Zealand, 60 cents. $2.6 million US. The Green Party's enthusiasm for membership of this bank would increase proportionately to the way in which we divided our contribution of 92 to the bank and 2 to the fund, to the Green Climate Fund, 46 million each, sir, then we'd have sustainable growth. Thank you.